Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games that I have not played and I score them based on the store pages. This week, we are continuing on with Space Month, a theme month that was suggested by my good buddy Flamed Ezra. Be sure to check him out. You can look him up. We've had him on with some of our other reviews. But this week, I am actually looking at a game that had come out recently in the beginning of March. I found out about this one. I was just browsing through Reddit on a cozy game community, and I think it was the developer themselves or somebody had shouted out this game. So I gave it a quick look, and I'm like, that looks kind of interesting. Let me take a look at that and see what we think. So we are looking at AETHUS by who is this called? Uh, Cosmonaut Games. I have very limited exposure to them, and by very limited, I mean my knowledge of this developer extends to what we see right here on the store page. They do tell us here that AETHUS was created by Cosmonaut Games, a solo indie developer based in Edinburgh, Scotland. I am self published, self funded, and fully committed to old fashioned ethical game development. So it seems like this is kind of following in the footsteps of like Stardew Valley, where it started off one guy on his passion project putting something out, along with similar things like Cave Story kind of had that similar development cycle. No use of generative AI, no early access, no microtransactions or battle passes. So basically, he intends to have the game released and that be the game. There are some notes in there up at the top of the page where there's some updates and some extra content added, but not this was not an early access thing. Those are like the kinds of fixes that come out when a game comes out to, a large audience who, no matter how much quality assurance goes into a game, there's going to be things that fly under the radar because millions of potential players is going to find a lot more than, just a handful of quality testers. They do tell us the game contains some effects that may make it unsuitable for people with photosensitive conditions. Player discretion is advised. I could imagine, we do see some shots here of some very bright and vibrant, like magma based, nature based, desolate wastelands, cave systems. We do see that as we go through this stuff. So let's go on to the first part of our review where we look at the store page about this game. AETHUS is a story driven survival crafting game about carving out a future from the ruins of corporate greed. So, from what I gathered in the trailers, it does seem that it is a corporation that sends you to this, or at least some mix of a corporation and your grandfather sending you to investigate and build and mine for resources on this planet. And there's some kind of a mystery about what's going on, but at the same time, like you're going in and doing the mining, but maybe not trying to just completely tear the planet apart in the process. You are Maeve, an ex mining engineer for the Astral Resource Corporation ARC, a galactic megacorp that profits by draining entire planets of their resources. Okay, so you are an ex mining engine. So you did work for them, but you've since quit or been fired. Something in that story where you're no longer with them. As you take on your own mining claim, you'll explore the remnants of a doomed science expedition and the abandoned facilities they left behind as Maeve strives to build a stable life of her own outside of Ark's control. Armed with nothing but her basic mining equipment, tales from her beloved granddad, and her loyal AI drone companion, can you unravel the mystery of an incredibly powerful new element and uncover the dark secrets that the Corpos would rather keep buried. Already, just by that storyline, I'm already intrigued. I will say, like, I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second to say that when I first saw the trailers, I was kind of getting the vibe of One Lonely Outpost. I think that's the game title. I've played a little bit of it. I do have it in my Steam library, so it's not one that I can review for this show. But at first, I was kind of like, is this basically like somebody else's One Lonely Outpost? Now, that is not to say that I thought it was necessarily a ripoff because I don't know if the developer had ever seen it, played it, heard of it. it is common enough for people to have similar ideas and then express them in different ways. But then seeing this first section of the description here, it does tell me that they do take a very different direction, especially with some of the stuff here showing more decorative focused things going on. You build your mining outpost, construct and expand your base of operations for expeditions deep underground. Use simple but powerful modular building system to create your own mining operations hub filled with dozens of types of refining, processing, and crafting stations. Grow plants, raise fish, and prospect for gems in your cozy habitats, which you can decorate with almost any item you come across. So for people that like the decorative aspect of games like this sounds like it would be right up your alley, which is one of the things, like, that's a very small thing I feel like that sets it apart from my comparison a minute ago to One Lonely Outpost. On top of the visual design is a bit more distinct. It feels a little more grounded in how the system is set up, even though you're rapid building everything as it's laid out. But I do think that it's already looking like it offers enough of its own thing to really set it apart. So I promise I'm not going to keep making a comparison to One Lonely Outpost. Again, I haven't even played that much of it. I do want to get back into it and maybe do a series on that for YouTube. But for what it's worth, AETHUS is already looking good from what I can see in the brief description. I haven't even talked about the trailers yet. Mine for riches in a physical world. Laser blast mining in a handcrafted physics-based alien world. Okay, physics-based. So it's telling me that, we're going with a lot more of a freeform movement, even though we do have this kind of isometric top-down, like almost top-down view. Descend underground and use lasers, explosives, and drills and more to gather hundreds of different resources from your mining claim, then refine them and craft new tools for exploration. You upgrade your suit and mining drone companion to explore deep and further into the world. So even though Maeve is starting off with just kind of the bare bones basic equipment, she does seem equipped with the knowledge and the basic tools to go ahead and use the resources she gathers to make upgrades of all kinds of things. So I'm seeing potential for all kinds of crafting, skill trees, all kinds of expansion that's going to go ahead. It's going to be a game of progression, much like like that whole vein of cozy games, the Stardew. Um, Not to say that the gameplay is the same. I am not saying that because progression engines are, in fact, older than all of those things. I mean, RPGs are progression engines outright. So that kind of progression can be a nice little thing. It might be a little bit of a grind depending on how much resources it takes and how much hunting and waiting for things to respawn. But at the very least, like, we do look like we have a nice engine of progression to go along here. Narrative driven survival, a fully voiced narrative about family, resistance, and choosing your own future, built from the ground up with story at its heart. Uncover a dystopian corporate conspiracy and decide how far you're willing to go for the truth. Story is not an afterthought in AETHUS. There's always new narrative to drive you forward. And that's something that I'm gonna go ahead and touch on when we go to talk about the trailers too, because we do get a little bit more of a hint with the story that they're boasting about here. Play your way. Tweak settings to achieve your perfect experience, less challenge or more, it's your choice. Looking for a laid back exploration experience, maybe a hardcore survival challenge, want to mix and match? Use the available game modifiers to set up your perfect game settings and adjust them at any time while playing. So that tells me that we're kind of going into maybe a little bit of a Minecraft thing, but possibly with more customization than just peaceful, normal, difficult, or hardcore mode with a permadeath. They even show us some of the stuff here: air supply, vitality, for your hunger and thirst, your carrying weight based on selected difficulty, easy for double, forgiving for 1.5, standard, and then economy. The value of items sold on the market will change based on selected difficulty and enable negative vitality effects. Normally, vitality stats provide positive bonuses at good levels, and this option can also give you negative effects when they reach low levels. So you get a lot of options to basically make the game as easy or hard with these systems. I know hunger and weight systems can be they can bog down a game, but having these options to go ahead and make them a little easier or harder, I could see it being interesting to go ahead and maybe start one save just to kind of get my feet wet, learn how the game works. And then if I wanted to do a challenge run like I've done with my Stardew Valley with 25% profit margin and a bunch of mods adding a lot of things to discover and find, doing something similar here could go ahead even without the mods, doing the same thing here with a hard mode air supply, vitality, carry weight, and less economy. That could be an interesting thing to try and 100% the game on those systems. A solo indie endeavor, and that's just what we mentioned earlier with our developer from Scotland going and putting this out. And honestly, that logo right there with the dog in the spacesuit, adorable. I will say it's simple. It gets the point across. Cosmonaut, nice play on words. I dig it. I do like silly puns. So good on that for their branding on this. They do show us a nice little snippet of graphics here, and it does feel like they give us quite a bit of information, even though Steam store pages do try to go, like in today's day and age, they seem to try and go a little lighter on the written information, but this one they do a good mix of these short little clip animation here of the gameplay. And like I said, like I'm saying, of the actual gameplay. This is our building interface that we see here. It looks like a point and click where you got these rotating everything, and they show even the items across the bottom of the screen that you're navigating through. So, one of the things that I do harp on in a lot of these reviews, anybody that's been listening for a while or watching for a while has probably noticed, is when a game seems inventory and crafting heavy, I feel like the game or the store page should at least show maybe a screenshot of inventory and crafting menus, just so you can kind of get an idea of what you're looking at. Now, we don't see a whole lot of all of that here, but we do at least see this building interface going in where we can see the categories on the screen: structures, facilities, platforms, lighting, storage, all of these things to just kind of go through and narrow down your category. It looks very well organized, looks like it's easy to kind of work with and figure out as you go along to build up your base how you see fit at the pace that suits you. You don't have to rush, you don't have to be dealing with all of that. And we do see news here that they've gone and updated some things. Now, we're going to go ahead on to our second part of the review here and take a quick little discussion on the trailers. Now, I'm not going to go and watch all the trailers the whole way through on the screen. I've already done that. But the trailers show us two distinctly different situations here. One of them is narrated by presumably Maeve's grandfather, basically seeming very apologetic in this recording where he's saying, "Hey, I'm sending you, or I'm hoping that you go to this facility, and honestly, that he tells us, I'm sorry for what you find. I hope you can forgive me for what you find," kind of thing. But it's important that you understand. And it seems like maybe Maeve's whole goal of striking out on her own was probably having something to do with being at odds with the goals of the corporation and maybe her trip to this planet and the narrative. At least the kind of vibe I'm getting seems to be that her grandfather wanted her to go here so that she can see the destruction that mining can yield. And if she is going to take on this venture to try and perform her job in a way that doesn't ravage the world, but that can still that can still turn a profit and still keep everything going. Like it can be a positive impact for both herself, the society, and the planet that she's harvesting from, and have some kind of mutually beneficial relationship for those three entities. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting. The second trailer is instead narrated by a by a voiceover from that corporation, the whatever the corporation was called. I forget, it slips my mind. But they are telling us that, it's given us that classic feel good vibe that the corporate mining facility is going to be aiming for. And I'm wondering, honestly, if there's maybe like branching storylines where you can choose to align with the corporate goals. They say you're an ex-employee of there, you're an ex-miner for the company, but I'm wondering if there is something where maybe you can like join back up. I don't know if that's an actual thing in the storyline. If not, I think it might be kind of a neat thing to add just to explore that story potential. But at the very least, hearing the dichotomy or the difference in tone from the corporate and from the grandfather does kind of give us a little bit of a neat outlook on the world and the setting and possibly the goals that Maeve is going to be dealing with. The trailers do show us more of these upgrade menus and everything, and there is a lot of upgrade menus. This is the kind of thing where for the player, it's going to be important to read what the upgrade does to kind of get an idea of what you're selecting when you go through. And again, like I said earlier, the game's showing us, the store page is showing us these menus is very helpful. The interface, the landscapes do look pretty varied as far as it being a desolate planet that you're mining on, which you kind of expect that a lot of cases. We have cases of the base building. We have it laid out in a complete like module map kind of system with solar panels. It looks like they are trying to emphasize that you have looks like generators, solar panels, hallways, different facilities, and different crafting and refining systems. The airlock, door seal, small habitat, large habitat. You have a lot of things going here for these screenshots that are showing us quite a bit actually. And another one, this one looks like a moving platform. I don't know if this is one that Maeve built herself to get across a gap, or if it was one that was already here that she just had to power up. But it does look like what I would expect to be a moving platform across like an energy line. Just based on what I have seen in similar sci-fi settings. So we do see that we have that kind of situation. All these other platforms out here in the distance in this magma-laden cave system. More of our crafting menus here. We have storage, the actual crafting item, what you require here, how long it takes. I don't know if that's going to be like where you have to sit and wait 8 seconds, or if you're basically just queuing up the bench to craft it so that the system is processing it while you're going and doing other things if you want to craft multiples of them, if that is an option. I'm hoping that's an option. Buried history. We do see our what looks like a little bit of a quest log here. The screens are showing us a lot here, along with our health and stamina, the weight system, the time of day. Basically, they are conveying so much information. Like I said earlier, menus, the crafting menus, the item storage systems, being able to see those and seeing that we do actually have nature on this planet too. That's a lot of cool stuff to just kind of get a hint at, to know what we're getting into, that we're not just on the barren wasteland of Mars or something like that, diving into torn apart cave systems, that maybe there is some kind of recovering nature that you're studying. I do believe that I also heard that one of the trailers had something where the voiceover was saying, hey, your benefactor like to collect animals, so if you see anything out there, be sure to catalog them, do that kind of thing. So it seems like there is actually some flora and fauna that is native to the planet, possibly, or it's left over from the previous terraforming attempts. I'm not entirely sure. That would be something to discover. But the store page, again, it's giving us these little hints that are driving my curiosity. We see more platforms, more things laid out here, workbenches that you can interact with, all sorts of things on the screen. The screenshots do convey, and it's not even that many screenshots. I feel like what we're seeing here with the hydroponics, the small plant bed, and all of these other menus, they are doing an excellent job of showing these things. The upgrade menus, we saw that in the trailer too. The crafting screens, the mapping of your home base, all of these. And then the final trailer is instead of a shorter trailer, this one is a 6-minute trailer that is narrated a bit by the developer himself talking about the game and just showing a little bit of the gameplay itself. We're going to go ahead and skip ahead a little bit where we do hear some of the in-game voiceover that you actually hear as you're playing the game. And you see the map moving, the point and click going on here so that you can kind of get an idea of what the game looks like as you're playing as opposed to just the game trailers. Now, this kind of thing might not be up everybody's alley, but the fact that they even just have this little 6-minute snippet here as kind of a preview of the game, it feels kind of like what I would expect to see on maybe an episode 1 of somebody's let's play on YouTube. By the way, check out my Field of Mystria, my Stardew Valley, and my Tiny Bookshop, and all those other series that I do on YouTube, if you're so inclined. Because episode ones kind of look like that. Anyway, that's the vibe we're getting here from the screenshots and the trailers, giving us a lot of information that you can just kind of pick apart if you so choose to go ahead and browse through them. There is a lot there to digest. So our next part of our review, I want to go ahead and analyze what we've seen so far. Graphically, the game's graphics do look well made. They're not photorealistic like you would see on what we reviewed last week with Pragmata. They're not going to be that level, but the textures on the environments do look a bit more on the simple side, but in a way that's not a bad. Now, not in a way, just absolutely, that is not a bad thing. That kind of simplicity can make it a little easier to parse out, the important things in the landscape. And honestly, I think that kind of development, that kind of visual, I think that helps the game to age better in the long run. When you can have like a simpler graphic style, again, that's the kind of thing that helps keep a game at a low cost. This one we're looking at $20 price tag, so about what I would expect for that kind of like vein of indie cozy game that you would sit down, play for a good long period. It does seem like the kind of price point to expect here, but the simple graphics and the simple environments still give enough variety, enough texture, enough landscaping to at least distinguish what is what. They show us in the gameplay trailer that there is like a scanning system that where your spacesuit will ping and highlight everything in the environment that you can interact with, which an incredibly handy little system to go ahead so that way I know sometimes in some games it's hard to parse out like what you're able to interact with, pick up, mine, all that kind of thing. But this one where it goes and highlights it for a brief period, it's like, okay, cool. I can go and deal with those trees or those rocks. But this platform over here, I can ignore this. I don't need to worry about that. It's a handy little system there. While the things that you would be dealing with, they do kind of stand out even without that pinging. But it still exists as a way for your sci-fi setting to kind of get some life there to your ability, especially when it comes to options to upgrade your equipment. I imagine upgrades probably extend the range and the accuracy and maybe find things that you couldn't see before. Sound wise, now the soundtrack is available on the Steam page. $5, pretty low price for the soundtrack, or you can get this deluxe pack that has a cosmetic DLC and the soundtrack for a little bit of a discount. But the trailers don't really do much to give us an inkling of that soundtrack. So I can't really say for certain if it's something that I would jump on. I'm not getting any kind of anything to judge the soundtrack on just yet. The gameplay, again, it seems to be a very progression driven game, similar to the likes of, and again, I'm not making the comparison that this is a ripoff. It's just a way to think about it in terms of what kinds of games people like. Stardew Valley, Fields of Mystria, One Lonely Outpost, um, those kinds of things where you have constant skill upgrades, equipment upgrades, or like new resources to discover, a constant progression engine, and the gameplay mixing with that UI, the Menus look very clean, very easy to navigate, scroll through. You get your mouse and just kind of scroll up and down those menus, read the things. It does seem like there's a lot of information to take in because all of the different kinds of upgrades probably give you a lot of perks as you progress. But again, as you play, they're going to become more intuitive as you go, I would imagine, because a lot of those times that's how those games work. Now, let's get on to the big question, the pricing of the game. Now, I did mention earlier the game is $20, 19.99 on full retail price. And from what I'm seeing, that is absolutely a price I would pay. Stardew Valley is $15. I think Fields of Mystria is 13 or 14 while it's in early access. That might bump up. One Lonely Outpost is in that similar price range somewhere, if I recall correctly. So the $20 for what I'm seeing here, a very story-driven game with customizable bases and a lot of progression to drive an enjoyable, cozy, long-running game with customization that lets you tailor the difficulty if you want a harder experience. It seems to offer a lot of utility there for all different kinds of players that enjoy these types of games, whether you like the min-maxing hardcore aspect of those games or if you prefer the more relaxed, laid-back, cozy aspects. I don't know if there's any combat or hostile environment. There is a health meter, so there's probably some hostility on the planet. They just didn't really mention a whole lot of that. Maybe it's environmental hazards for the most part. I don't know. That's not something they touched on. That would be something to illustrate or to point out is if there's combat or if it's just kind of environmental. Like, is there fall damage? If you get too close to a lava stream or something, does the heat break apart your suit? Things to keep in mind there. Now, there is also there's an Eden Crafters. Okay, Eden Crafters appears to be a completely different game, so we're not gonna look at that one. Astromedica, honestly, that sounds like Subnautica, but space. That's how it sounds. Again, that's another thing. We're not going to look at that bundle. We're going to take a look at this AETHUS, the DLC that's available for this. There is a supporters pack, which I did take a look. It is $5, and the supporter pack gets you gold visual customization for Maeve's suit and Roland's chassis. Roland being that little AI companion that we see floating around Maeve. Basically, the Navi or Tattle or what's another one of those like little floating assistant bot things? Hopefully not as annoying as Navi, but those kinds of things, as well as a gold outpost theme, which you can apply to your habitats, facilities, and decorations. They even point out that important by buying this DLC, you are showing your support for the game and the developer. There is no in-game advantage or benefit from purchasing this pack. Everything is purely visual. Respectable. For people that want to go ahead and toss an extra $5 to the developer for a little visual flair, go for it. Note, Outpost theme is available on game start, and visual customizations are available as soon as you construct the customization station facility in your outpost. So you do have to actually reach a point of progression before you can change that visual. Not a bad thing. The fact that it's available as an option for an extra $5, or you can completely ignore it if you don't want to toss the extra $5 to the developer, because $20, perfectly fair price for that. By the way, you can also check out the original soundtrack if you'd like, of which 50% of the profits go directly to the composer. Hey, cool. And they're saying that right there on the store page. I normally, when it comes to that kind of thing, like whoever is hired on for those kinds of things, I don't know all the background and the contracts that go into that because I'm not the developer. I'm not seeing all their legal work. But them going and saying that on their store page, that's kind of cool. That it's like, hey, yeah, all the sales of this, like the composer isn't just getting a single flat fee for the work they did. They're actually getting residuals off of the sales for this. So that's cool. That's good for them. Now, each of those individually are $5. So if you were to buy everything separately, you're looking at $30. Again, the visual flair, you can completely go without it. It's a $5 thing. It's not offensive to have it there because you can absolutely ignore it if you want. If you like the soundtrack, you can get that for $5, or you can get what we see here on the screen with this AETHUS Supporters Edition that comes with both the soundtrack and the supporter pack for the skins for $26.97. Now it says that's a 10% discount on the total package, so you're paying $27 basically for, again, what looks like a reasonably good, like a good graphically satisfying and gameplay satisfying game loop that I do have some experience with because I have played a fair chunk of cozy games, and this does seem like the kind of thing that I would bite on. I don't know that I would go and get the soundtrack for myself. Again, I would want to hear the soundtrack before I purchase it, and I would probably skip on the gold skins myself just because I don't really care to pay a little bit extra for the cosmetic stuff. But for the people who do like those things, you can get the bundle all put together for that little bit of a discount, and that's nice. That you can pay the 20, or you can pay for everything separate 30 or 27 for everything together. I feel like all of those are a fair enough price point to go ahead and let you purchase how you want and support the developer however you want, because again, they are boasting that they are a solo indie developer here. So basically whatever they sell here, this is all them. This isn't like where they get a tiny little snippet of a cut from Capcom. This looks like their passion project. It does. The assets and everything, they look reasonable, they look nice, everything looks like it's clean and coherent to its purpose with good like I don't I'm trying not to stumble over my words here. I'm looking at this and I don't want to just say that it's good enough. I don't want to say that it's just passable, because that I feel like saying that feels like I'm writing something off. Now, the store page, I will say they do hit a lot of the notes that I really like to see in these things. For a game that is heavy on the crafting, heavy on the skills, the upgrades, the progression, again, they do an excellent job of showing that. And they show the two tones of the corporate and the grandfather's side of things in the narrative between the launch trailer and the gameplay trailer, and then that extra little gameplay deep dive that shows like that little bit of early gameplay. Uh, we do get quite a reasonable view of what to expect from the game. And I respect every moment of that, every piece of that we see. You even get a couple of extra bundle options that you can go through. And there's been building improvements and a spring quest, a small new quest line and decorations to go with spring. So that's kind of a cool thing. Shortly after release, that was 3 weeks after this game came out that this spring patch came out, happened. And then a few weeks later, this one, 1.025 snapping improvements and Earth Appreciation Festival. So it seems like even though they're not doing, it's not like supposed to be a live service thing, they're still giving little updates here and there. Whew, excuse me. Yeah. I have a fan blowing at my back because this room gets a little warm, so that's sending the chill up my spine. But anyway, this game even made Tiny Teams 2025 official selection. That's kind of cool. I didn't even see that one. In Sydney 2025 Games Festival selection in December, UK Games Fund. Hey, that's kind of a cool thing. Seeing all these extra little accolades tossed on the sidebar here. So again, I really like what I'm seeing. I'm going to be keeping my eye on this. Again, the price, that $20 price point, I would snap this up. If I thought that I was going to be sitting down and playing this right now instead of working on the other like 5, 6, 7 projects that I've got going uh, on any given day, plus my overtime shifts at my regular job, I would be like, you know what? I'm going to grab this and I'm going to give it at the very least like a couple full days of possible recording sessions just to kind of see what the gameplay is like. Maybe um, maybe start up a whole series for YouTube for that, the way I've been doing my day by days. This is exactly the kind of thing I would use for that. I would go for that to kind of play, decorate, maybe give myself a challenge run like I've done with some of the other games. So this is one that, you know what, for those of you watching, you're going to see me doing this right now. I am adding this to my wish list because again, this is one that I am genuinely interested in this. If it goes on sale, I would probably snap it up like almost immediately on like a good percent sale. But at the same time, if I was going through my list of like, what kind of projects I could see myself doing or working on or new challenges, I could very much see myself dropping the full $20 price on this just to pick this up and get started on that series on YouTube or do something on Twitch with it. I do like that Cosmonaut Games went in and has that kind of like grassroots indie feel to it in their development, in their promotion, in their trailers. It feels very genuine and heartfelt from them as a developer. Now, if there is anything that I would criticize for the Steam store page, it's going to be this one thing, and I know I mentioned it a few minutes ago. I know there's a health bar, which means that, death or passing out is probably possible, but there's not really much mention, at least not that I've noticed, if there is hostile entities on the planet, if there's combat, if there's that kind of stuff going on, or maybe I overlooked something. I feel like I would like to see if with a little bit more clarity if there is hostile entities on the planet that you have to deal with where you have to have some kind of a weapon on hand or something. In fact, do we see anything anywhere like on any of these item menus? Because we do see the item hotbars on the screen set in this nice little hexagon layout. No, those look like all resources and stuff. I'm not seeing anything that looks along the vein of weapons. Gameplay deep dive, anything in there? No, I don't see. I maybe I'm not seeing something, but I'm not seeing something that to me looks like a weapon, so I can't really be certain if there is that kind of hostile entity. I would like to know if there's combat or if it's just environmental hazards that could be a threat to your health, your spacesuit integrity, any of that kind of stuff. I would like maybe a little bit of clarity on that. And it is for that reason that AETHUS by Cosmonaut Games is getting my final rating for the Steam store page of a very positive 9 out of 10. Again, the store page is doing a wonderful job of portraying its information, conveying the gameplay, the loop, the progression, the tone, the UI, the presentation of the game, and making me feel like I know what to expect going in without spoiling too much of the story and the feel of the game and the resources that you're going to be learning and working with. So it does look like there is a lot to discover. And frankly, if I get the chance to go ahead and spend a reasonable amount of time with this, or even an unreasonable amount of time with this, the way that, if anybody out there who plays Stardew or Path of Exile, go ahead and comment down below what your playtime is on those games because yeah, I'm pretty sure that we could go on a whole tangent of how how much playtime we have on some games like that. And this is exactly the kind of game that could very much get similar levels of playtime just by the looks of it. So again, very positive 9 out of 10. I do wish that it was more clear if there was combat. Um that's quite frankly, I think that's my only complaint. Now, if you're the kind of player who likes those kind of cozy games with exploration, especially with a space theme, like if you liked the look of Planet Crafter, but maybe don't necessarily need the multiplayer aspect of it, this might be more up your alley than Planet Crafter. Because I know we reviewed that one a couple weeks ago, and this one looks on the baseline, it looks similar on the surface level, but again, it does look like it has a a great deal to set it apart and to give it its own unique flair and its unique flavor. And I highly respect that. And I do look forward to keeping my eye out on this and getting the chance to play it myself. Maybe not in the immediate future, just because of my own schedule and time constraints, but I could easily see myself squirreling away $20 out of my budget for this. That is not going to the price is not the thing that's going to keep me off of this game.